Welcome back to another edition of the Stokastic.com MMA strategy shows. We're here to get you ready for Saturday's UFC Long Island, which will be an early start there on Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be locked on Saturday with the prelims main card, 2 p.m. East time headline by a featherweight match between Brian Ortega and Yair Rodriguez. Myself and Pete will be here for the next hour, breaking down this fight card. We are sponsored by Prize Picks. Talk about some of those props over at Prize Picks. I'm already targeting some of those fight time props over at Prize Picks. Also, some of those takedown props are kind of interesting as well. But of course, as always, here on Stokastic.com, I am joined by the fighter Pete Rogers Jr. Good afternoon, Pete. How's it going, bro?
Good afternoon. Daytime fights coming up on Saturday, and I cannot be more excited.
Hey, early showtime on Saturday, bro. You gotta set that alarm. Make sure you're up.
Yeah, bro. You don't got to worry about me. I'm an early riser and grinding all day, so it'll be nice to have the night off where I'm not just watching fights, and probably won't get called into work. So me and the lady might go out. We'll do something.
Hey, look, I love some early day MMA. I'm always a big fan of that one. Of course, if you got any questions on the fights, leave those right here in the chat. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It really helps us out a ton as well. Of course, if you're not subscribed to Stokastic, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live here on the channel. And of course, if you're not a Stokastic Plus member and you want to get a little peek what's behind the paywall, today's free premium data and tools are MLB player projections. I'll definitely be looking at all the tools and data we have for the MLB slate tonight before I'm actually be heading over to the Hard Rock Casino here in Tampa tonight, watch the little live fights. So Pete, it's been I think like since 2019 is the last time I went and saw live fights.
Really? You haven't been? Like it's been
long obviously all of 2020, and then here in Tampa, we used to be kind of a hotbed for regional MMA.
Yeah.
But it's kind of died down, and the CFFC has been coming here more recently. But I want to say this is the third time they've come to Tampa, but the previous two times just it did work with my schedule. But no, man, I'm looking to go see a lot of local talent, a lot of up and coming local talent on this card. They did lose one title fight, but they still have a flyweight title fight. Santo, who fought on the Contender Series, he's headlining this show against the guy that I spoke to, Lloyd McKinney. So, but I'm looking forward to it, man. And, I always say this, part of my entertainment of going to local shows is the things fans say in the crowd.
Yeah. I mean, I can see you and Tyler having a laugh when you get some ridiculous fans out there. I'm over here face palming whenever I hear any of these idiots in the crowd. Yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating as a purist, but I get it. And we're thankful to have any support from the fans.
Oh, I forget who I was talking to. I asked him, I'm like, do you hear the crowd? They're like, sometimes there's times where look, you hear
the crowd.
Kick him in the balls. There's a good chance someone has had a few cocktails in them and they're going to yell that out.
Oh yeah. I mean, you hear a lot, obviously, if it's chaotic and the action is ridiculous and the crowd is amplified, you're not going to be able to selectively hear. But in the moments of the fight, when you're sitting there and you're being methodical and then somebody just screams out something random, I'd be like, oh, that's my dad, that's my stepmom, that's my girlfriend, that's my mom. You know what I mean? I can totally put a finger on who's saying stuff. Okay,
so now I know my objective for your next fight. I already know it. I just got to recruit some people in the casino. Just going to hand them some tickets and go, look, I need you to yell out just some crazy. I'm just going to say, I'm going to give them a cue card.
Thanks,
can you yell out Takedown City? I need you to yell us out about 5 times.
As long as what you're having them yell out is not going to sabotage me, I'm okay with it. We want me performing well. And, I think that the Long Island crowd's going to be, in for it, especially with Shane Burgos on the card as the only true New Yorker.
Pete, I will give him the old D-twist. I'll do if Jason calls, I will be there for you, my friend.
We know you will answer the bell, Tyler. That's funny.
I would be like, hey man, can I be one of your cornermen?
Yeah, I love you, Jason, but no.
Oh man, but but looking forward to that tonight. So but of course we're here to break down UFC Long Island main event. We got Yair Rodriguez taking on Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega, he is 8,500 on DraftKings, 7,700 for Yair Rodriguez. Of course, these two guys scheduled for 25 minutes. First time we have seen Ortega since that loss to Volkanovski. And I mean, Pete, when I think of this fight, I think it just comes down to how does this fight play out? If you tell me this fight hits the ground, man, you got to really love Ortega in the spot. But if this fight stays on the feet, you just know there is going to be some openings for Yair Rodriguez to take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, broken price tags on both of them, if you want me to be honest. 5-round atmosphere, violent fight between Ortega and Yair. 8,500 for Ortega, 7,700 for Rodriguez. However this fight goes, I feel like it's optimal. At least that's how I'm approaching the slate. So I'm making a group on Stokastic, stokastic.fantasycruncher.com, and I'm getting to one of these guys in my lineups. Now, I do feel like it's a very, very close fight because it all comes down to the game plan of both fighters. I actually think Ortega will struggle on the feet at kicking range, obviously, because Yair Rodriguez has such dexterity and just, a variety of attacks. So he can keep Ortega guessing, and he can bury a lot of kicks to the body, legs, and head. It's interesting because Yair did struggle a lot against the Korean Zombie in the boxing realm until he pulled out like one of the biggest Hail Mary elbows of all time and ended up capturing that victory. So like striking wise, I actually think that Yair improved in the Max Holloway fight and looked phenomenal. And I think that he can be a dangerous fighter for Ortega. I'm favoring Yair Rodriguez slightly, because of the salary and just how I kind of foresee this going. And I think Ortega can be lulled into a brawl. If Ortega's game plan is to mix in takedowns and tailored his game plan around his strengths, which is his jiu-jitsu, then I really think that at 8,500, you're talking about a guy that can pick up a submission win within, inside the distance, obviously. And if he goes out there and he tries to replicate what Frankie Edgar did, obviously not the same type of wrestling skill set that Frankie has, but the jiu-jitsu edge is extremely clear, then Ortega can easily get this done. So I'm picking Yair Rodriguez in the fight, but I'm not avoiding this fight at all. Ortega is going to be one of my most exposed. Same with Yair.
Sam, appreciate you in the super chat. I always appreciate you checking out the show and supporting the show. Really do appreciate that. Look, one of the things that I did see a little bit before the show yesterday, Brian Ortega did talk about wanting to get back to his jiu-jitsu roots, which if you're a Brian Ortega backer on Saturday, you absolutely love hearing that. I mean, we always talk about what is that easier path to a victory, and the path to victory, the easier path for Brian Ortega is I always say, don't let the ego get the best of you, and attempt to get this one to the ground and force the grappling side of it. I think I'll find myself with more Ortega than I will Rodriguez, but I like what you said there. I think you got to get to both sides of this matchup just because of 25 minutes. I will say over on Prize Picks, I think the under 22 and 3/4 fight time on Brian Ortega is kind of interesting. That one, I don't know if that number is going to get any better. But I'm kind of more thinking that there is going to be a stoppage at some point in this matchup, but to me, I think it's a fight that you definitely have to prioritize. Now let's move over to the co-main event, a female matchup. You got Michelle Waterson taking on Amanda Lemos. 9,400. Michelle Waterson, she is 6,800. And Michelle Waterson, obviously a longtime veteran of the UFC. She's talked about this week of kind of hoping maybe the UFC would adopt an atom weight division, which would be more of her natural weight class. But for Michelle Waterson to pull off the upset here, she's got to make this a grappling match.
Yeah. So I think that Michelle, she's proven she's extremely tough, but I feel like we have seen her regress a little bit, and she's not the same fighter she used to be. And it's primarily because she's starting to just throw hands specifically. Her kicks and her distance striking used to be like her bread and butter, in addition to mixing some takedowns, a lot of head and arm throws, which I think could be a difference maker here against Amanda Lemos. Both of these ladies have trained together a little bit at Jackson Wink several years ago. Since then, we've seen Amanda Lemos really turn a corner in her career, and we've seen Michelle Waterson kind of fall from the top rankings, if you will. Still a big name in women's MMA, of course. I feel like, with this fight going the distance, I can see Michelle with the correct game plan making this competitive. So I'm going to sprinkle her in some of my lineups at 6,800, more of a salary play than a performance play. It's just like if she wins the decision, she could get us, let's call it 70 points or something like that. I just don't foresee her having so much success, whether it's on the feet. I think Amanda Lemos is going to make her pay in some combinations, test that chin of Michelle Waterson. She's been extremely hittable of late. And I think that Lemos rolls here. It's just a salary of 9,400. The only way that she pays off the salary is obviously with a finish. Finishing Michelle Waterson, I think, is tough. It's not impossible, but what Michelle's toughness could actually do to Lemos, that's 9,400, is possibly rack up some knockdowns. And we see Waterson get back to her feet. So I'm getting to Lemos. I'm not like in love with her salary because of how I see this fight going. And I feel like there's some other options out there that have a higher chance of a finish, but I'm getting to her at 9,400. I'm just going to have to wait on ownership. If she comes in massively over-owned, I might be a little neutral or below it. And I'm expecting her to roll and get a victory here. But, 9,400 is a little tough when it comes to the rest of the slate.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the ownership. I mean, look, for what we're seeing right now, it is just not much there for Michelle Waterson, which is understandable. If I was probably going to look at doing anything with Michelle Waterson, it'd probably be more in a cash game as opposed to into a GPP. We mentioned this question from Joshua. He says, if it goes the distance, does Lemos throw enough volume to win a fight?
Yeah, shout out to Josh. What's up? I would probably say there are very few fighters who have both volume and power. Lemos is a sniper and has power. So she could have more damaging shots, and damage weighs a lot in the eyes of the judges. And besides just being the fighter who's extremely active. So to answer his question, no, I would say probably not for volume, but for damage, yes. So that's why I think she's going to get the decision. And, it's going to be competitive because Michelle's going to make it competitive early. But I feel like the longer the fight goes, Lemos is going to touch her up.
And damage is the number one priority when it comes to judges scoring a fight, even though last week didn't necessarily agree with the Michael Johnson and Jamie Malarkey decision. I thought that was a Michael Johnson win there, but there's always going to be probably one fight a week that's going to have a scorecard that maybe we don't agree with. Let's move over. Next up, we got Li Jialing taking on Muslim Salikov. Salikov 8,600, Li Jialing 7,600. What's your take, Pete?
I'm interested in both sides on this, to be honest. And I was listening to some interviews, and Muslim Salikov coming from a Sanda background, in addition to Jingliang. So both of these guys are known in the Chinese MMA and martial arts community pretty well. So I thought it was pretty captivating that, the matchmakers paired them up against each other, and they've known of each other. They've always had their eyes on each other, and they've cross-trained for a couple of weeks at Extreme Couture during, a couple of their camps. So I think that there's going to be respect here, but I also think that there's a lot on the line for this matchup. I think that Salikov is the sniper of the two, whereas Jingliang is the banger of the two. And Jingliang will crash distance, throw ridiculous combinations, but I mean, he does make some defensive mistakes. And against a guy of extreme striking skill, the king of Kung Fu, Muslim Salikov, I think can make him pay. And the takedowns are interesting because Muslim Salikov showed off a different wrinkle in his game in his past fight against Francisco Trinaldo, where he landed 2 takedowns and he went 2 of 3 in the takedown department, which is something to kind of solidify rounds. And I'm going to be siding with Muslim Salikov. I think he has some sneaky KO upside. But with all that being said, if I'm looking at this slate as a whole, as you guys should always, Jingliang is one of the best underdogs on the slate, because if he wins, in order to outperform Muslim Salikov, I think he's going to score really, really well. So I'm prioritizing this fight, and I'm going to be picking Salikov, but I think Jingliang is in a great underdog role as well.
Yeah, I will tell you, this is one of those slates. I have a feeling one of these 9,000 fighters is not going to win.
Yeah, I mean, more often than not, somebody lays an egg, and these big favorites. It's difficult in MMA to live up to the odds all the time because there's so many variables in an MMA fight. We talk about it. So many so many ways to make a mistake. And when you're fighting at the top level, you get people that capitalize on mistakes. So don't be afraid to leave salary on the table. I already crunched a bunch of my lineups and made sure I left some salary on the table.
Yeah, it's something you definitely have to do. And of course, you hear Pete and I talking about ownership, and that's something that is one of the big tools that I'm looking at. And if you want to get access to our ownership projections and so much more, you got to sign up for a Stochastic Plus Platinum Pass, where you get access to everything we have over at Stokastic.com for, top, player projections, ownership projections, so much more. These are tools that Pete and I are using every single week to develop our MMA lineups. And if you've never been a Stokastic Plus member, we got a great deal for you right now. As if you're a new user of Stokastic Plus, you can save 50% off your first week of any Stokastic Plus pass. So whether you want to get access to all the sports we have over Stokastic.com, or maybe you just want an MMA pass, you can sign up for that MMA pass, get you that top fighter tool, ownership projections, so many other tools and data we have over there. It's a great way to develop your lineups. And I'll tell you, already looking at our ownership projections, there are some fighters that are low owned that I definitely want to take a shot on. So you got to take advantage of this tremendous deal. If you've never been a Stokastic Plus member, get 50% off your first week. Use that promo code MMA Strategy Show, all caps, one word, MMA Strategy Show, for 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus Platinum. This is for new users only, and highly recommend adding Fantasy Cruncher to your account, as that'll help you out a ton with your lineups. So, Pete, let's move over to the next matchup. I mentioned about some of these 9,000 favorites that do in some ways scare me. Let me go to the Sumoderji and Matt Schnell fight. Matt Schnell 7,100, Sumoderji 9,100. I'm looking at the ownership projection right now have on Matt Schnell. It is way too low.
Yep.
Look, I like Sumoderji to win the fight. But when we're talking about GPPs and we're playing, multi entries, even if you're just playing a 20 max, to me, I want to get the Matt Schnell this week, because look, if Matt Schnell goes out and wins, I think the probability in this fight is that someone's getting finished in this fight.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're on the same page, and that's how I build lineups, right? Like, obviously I'm going to be favoring one side or the other. And I am favoring Sumoderji here. And I think that him being a long southpaw, only having a 2-inch reach advantage, but how he throws his strikes can give Matt Schnell problems. And we've seen the chin of Matt Schnell not check out time and time again. But when Matt Schnell does put everything together, he looks like a high-ranked, fighter. He really does. He has the skills. He just doesn't have the durability. And there have been times where his durability has checked out, and it surprised me, like the Tyson Nam fight, of course. The Rogério Bontorin was interesting as well. But, like, he's able to get finished in his fight. So this is a volatile fight. Now, if this hits the mat, I think Matt Schnell cuts through Sumoderji like a hot knife through butter. Like I truly do. I think that Matt Schnell's submission chops are going to be on display if it reaches that. So pretty similar to how, like, I think that, Jingliang, if he wins, he scores well. I view the same thing for Matt Schnell. And the fact that he's going up against a 9,000 fighter in Sumoderji, yeah, he's from American Top Team and has improved and has, early KO upside, like true early KO upside over Matt Schnell. There's no way I'm going to have bare minimum ownership on Matt Schnell. I've already crunched. I already have a decent amount of them. And it comes down to the game plan. Now, the issue with Matt Schnell is, like, not going to the takedown well. He doesn't have great takedowns. He has good jiu-jitsu. He attempted one takedown against Hector Sandoval and then was knocked out. There's only been a couple fights where he's attempted 2 takedowns. So if he's able to get one, that may be all he needs, similar to how he did against Luis Smolka, 1 of 1, and got a quick submission finish. So I love what you're saying there, Jason. And this is just an ownership play for me. And I'm going to be getting to both sides, favoring Sumoderji, but man, people are disrespecting Matt Schnell's finishing ability.
Yeah, Schnell hasn't been at ATT for a while. He's trained in Texas.
No. Sumoderji.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, I misunderstood you there. I mean, look, I think this is a matchup when you talk about, one thing I'd always recommend is, like, printing up the fight card And then, and if you're a Stokastic Plus member, printing up that top fire tool. And then there's certain fights I think that you just have to circle and say, okay, these are fights I need to prioritize. And this matchup, I think, is one of those fights. When we talk about the main event, to me, that's one of those fights. I'll tell you, just as an ownership play, a fight that I might ultimately prioritize is the second fight of the card, because it's a fight that just does not have a lot of ownership on either side of the card. Those are some of the things that, to me, when you're developing lineups, that you have to take in consideration of where is the field getting to, what fights they might be over-owned on, what fights they may be under-owned on, and what fights have the high probability of potentially getting a finish. And to me, Sumoderji and Matt Schnell is another one. Now, to me, my second favorite fight of the night is the next one we're going to talk about, and this has got banger written all over it, of Shane Burgos and Charles Jourdain. Jourdain 7,200, Shane Burgos 9,000. Look, I think the salaries on this are a little wide to me. Okay. I think this fight is closer than the salaries indicate. Shane Burgos clearly should be the favorite. I do have some kind of concerns about if this becomes a brawl, and potentially Charles Jourdain can take advantage of that.
Yeah, so this fight's amazing. This is like the featherweight backup plan. You know what I mean? Like, man, these guys are they're there to bang and put on a show. And Jourdain really brings some high level kickboxing, and Shane Burgos brings some high level striking as well, with great pressure. Now, we have seen Jourdain crumble a little bit to the pressure that Erosa put on him in the past, but we've also seen Shane Burgos get hit and damaged a lot in his bouts. And that's the one worry I have with Shane Burgos as a pretty big favorite on DraftKings. And I do agree with you that the odds are a little bit wide. And we saw the damage that he took and all the shots he took from Josh Emmett. Man, that can definitely change your career. Then we saw the knockout defeat to Edson Barboza, the delayed reaction, all big red flags. The Calvin Kattar knockout. He's losing to top level competition, but he's still losing in a pretty damaging manner. So I have my concerns with this matchup. And I feel like this week there's going to be some crazy variables, and there's going to be a lot of variance to the slate. So, plan accordingly. A lot of these fighters that we're expecting to win, they may lay an egg, or the underdogs, like we said, it's a more competitive matchup. So this card is a GPP card all day long, because Jourdain, one of my most exposed underdogs, I do think that Shane Burgos can bring the pressure and the correct game plan. It's just a matter of if his durability checks out. Now, I think Burgos might have a sneaky grappling edge over Jourdain. And I know Jourdain capitalized against Lando Venata with a nice submission win, but I don't view him as a dangerous grappler. I think that he caught Venata in a very, very good choke, but I think that there is some wrestling upside to Burgos in this matchup if he goes to that well. I think it's just a matter of blending it together and working with his former opponent in Josh Emmett, high caliber training partner for a little bit over at Sacramento, and then, back at Tiger Schulman's for the remainder of his camp. I'm leaning towards Shane Burgos, but again, I'm expecting underdogs to come through this week, and Charles Jourdain pulling off the upset wouldn't really surprise me.
These are both high volume strikers. When you look at the strikes landed per minute, 7.95 for Burgos, 5.6. Just gonna throw something out there, Pete. Could we stack the fight?
Oh, it's a good one. I mean, the stack last week that somebody asked, it was Ronnie Lawrence against Said Yokob. That didn't work out because Said Yokob had a very, very dominant performance. If somebody has a dominant performance, stacking will not work. If a competitive fight ensues between both of them and it's craziness galore, I'm probably going to in a 20 max, just completely get different, stack some of these oddball matchups like a Burgos Jourdain. I don't hate it. It's just a matter of, does Burgos or Jourdain's durability hold up the entire 15 minutes?
Yeah, no question about it. Now, the opening fight of the main card on ABC will be a flyweight matchup. Miesha Tate making her 125-pound debut, taking on Lauren Murphy. 8,800 for Miesha Tate, 7,400 for Lauren Murphy. This fight was supposed to take place 2 weeks ago. However, fight got delayed 2 weeks due to Lauren Murphy testing positive for COVID. And this is one of those fights that, as we sit here on a Thursday, I want to see what both fighters look like on the scale tomorrow. What does Miesha Tate look like on the scale at 125 pounds as opposed to how she has looked at 135 pounds? So like, this is also one of those things of, okay, you know, if you're Lauren Murphy, what's the ideal game plan here? Is the ideal game plan of just say, you know what, let me just piece up Miesha Tate on the feet?
Yeah, it has to be sprawl and brawl. It really does. And I'm worried about this fight, man. Like when we were doing our Odd Shopper video, if you guys haven't checked it out, please do so. Where we break down everything from a betting standpoint and try to pick props that we really like. This fight's volatile. And the reason it's so volatile is you have Miesha Tate dropping down a weight class, which is a pretty significant cut for a girl that, you know, looked fantastic on the scale in her most recent bout. And then you also have Lauren Murphy coming off of COVID. So how can you truly have trust in either one of these? And you have to pay attention to the weigh-ins. And I could see this spoiling a lot of parlays because I'm a little worried that Miesha Tate's overlooking Lauren Murphy. Like I truly feel like she's, you know, has her eyes set past Lauren Murphy, thinking about that Shevchenko possibility and, you know, just kind of like a new weight class and just has to pick up an easy win. Like Lauren Murphy's a tough out and Lauren Murphy can sprawl and brawl decent. But Miesha Tate's wrestling should be the difference maker here. And her boxing's competitive. I think that the volume of Lauren Murphy is going to bring out the wrestling of Miesha Tate. And I'm going to be favoring Miesha Tate just because I feel like from a physicality standpoint, she's probably going to be stronger. And we know that if she can get it to the mat, she can put on a hell of a performance. So it's a lean towards Miesha Tate. But man, women's MMA, you always know if you are a little bit more overexposed on the underdog, tends to work out more often than not.
Yeah, it's one of these matchups that I don't think I'm going to find myself getting a ton to because I just don't. Miesha Tate 8,800 in comparison to some of these other fights that I just think have a high probability of the fight ending via finish. That's why I necessarily do not want to get there. But you know, that's obviously could be a little bit of an ownership play here as we get to Saturday morning as we're developing all of our lineups here. Of course, so this is a strategy show, and we are sponsored by Prize Picks. You got to check out Prize Picks. You head over to PrizePicks.com or download their app in the App Store. And of course, when you sign up, be sure to use that promo code AWESEMO as they've got instant first match deposit of up to $100. Simple. You want to put $100 in your account, they're going to give you an additional 100, or maybe you only want to put 20 in, they'll give you additional 20. So you got to take advantage of that great promo they have for the listeners here at the MMA Strategy Show. And Pete, I'm looking first off over at Fight Time. And I'll mention about a fight that we've already talked about. Sumoderji 12.5 as a Fight Time. I'm going to target the under on that one, Pete.
Yeah, I feel like the under is a good play. Sumoderji is going to come out aggressive. And Matt Schnell talked about, you know, his back being against the wall, and a cornered animal is a dangerous animal. And I feel like Schnell could either, you know, get finished early or just completely implement his grappling and go for the finish. So I like the under on that play. Another
Fight Time prop that I'm going to be targeting as well as the fight we're about to break down, Punahele Soriano. We saw with his opponent Dolce in his last fight, just awful fight IQ of wearing down. It's at 10 minutes. I'm going to target the under in that one.
Yeah, I feel like the under is a good play. And Dolce can knock out Puna, and Puna needs to respect the power of Dolce. So, but from a skill set, I think that Puna's much more skilled than Dolce and comes from a better camp. So I think that, you know, the under is another good play.
A couple of takedown props that stick out to me over at Prize Picks. Jack Shore, 2 takedowns. And we're going to talk about that fight a little bit. I might go the under on that one. I may be hoping that number maybe gets up to 2.5, that people start making plays on the over, because I think that's going to be a fight that plays out on the feet. Obviously, both of them have a grappling upside there. The under 1.5 on Puna Soriano, I think, is another interesting takedown prop over there. And also the 1.5 on Herbert Burns against Bill Algeo is another takedown prop that is intriguing to me.
Yeah, I mean, the Shore one against Ricky Simone has amazing hips, and he's the dominant wrestler in that situation. It's going to be a scramble city, and I can't wait to watch it. And I don't think that Shore will land that many takedowns. I think that he can reverse several takedowns or scramble enough, but I don't think he's going to land 2 takedowns.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is like you almost want that to get to 2.5, meaning he has to get to 3 to get to make that, as opposed to maybe they're just kind of he gets a takedown, but Simone's up in 5 seconds. That could be a little bit of worry there. But of course, appreciate the sponsorship there from Prize Picks. Of course, be sure to use that promo code OSMO for an instant first match deposit of up to $100. Move over next up to a matchup that we just kind of talked about a little bit there. Punahele Soriano taking on Dolce. 9,200 for Punahele, 7,000 for Dolce. And Pete, I know we have very short-term memories in MMA. You know it, I know it. I can't get Dolce's last fight out of my memory, where he was lighting up Cody Brundage. Light him up, and he got tired, sloppy shot, got guillotined.
Yeah, but he looked good while he was lighting up Brundage, and like his hands look great when he throws them, and he's a round one type of guy, liability in the cardio department. So you always worry about him gassing out as the fight goes late. And that's where I think that Puna Soriano, even though that he's shown signs of fatiguing in the past, I think that he has a better gas tank and he has a more well-rounded skill set. Dolce coming from a judo background and Puna Soriano having a wrestling background as well. He's able to mix things up if he wants to. It's just he's fallen in love with his hands. Now, let me tell you that when you're on back-to-back defeats, you're willing to do anything to get a victory. And coming from a strong camp and Extreme Couture, I think that Puna could look for a takedown to make it the easiest path to victory here in getting rid of Dolce. But I think he could look at countering Dolce as well. So Punahele Soriano coming off a two-fight skid. Price has a pretty high favorite, 9,200. I get it and I understand it, but I feel like Dolce at 7,000, if he wins, it's probably by catching Puna from disrespecting his striking. And I'm going to have some sprinkles on Dolce Lumbambula, but Punahele Soriano is the side that I'm just backing and have more faith in, to be honest, at 9,200.
Look, Puna has definitely cost me some money in some of these recent fights, but I do find myself favoring him in this matchup. Next up, we'll go to that matchup we just talked about a moment ago. Jack Shore and Ricky Simone. Ricky Simone, 7,800. Jack Shore, 8,400. And I was thinking about this a little bit before the show today and thinking about both these guys having those grappling bases and kind of thinking that it's, like if you were going down a column and, you had, the grappling, I would probably call it a little bit even between these two guys. Maybe I give a slight edge to Ricky Simone. Ricky Simone is a smaller fighter in this one. And I keep thinking about who's the better striker? And I I guess I give the slight edge to Jack Shore.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's a very, very competitive fight and extremely interesting because I hold both of these fighters in high regard. I think that they are the future of the division. And this is like an early crossroads for both of them. And then they'll probably meet up again in the future and might even fight 3 times because I think they're going to be ranked for quite some time. Ricky Simone is one of my favorite fighters inside the UFC, oddly enough. I love how he blends everything together. He's, fallen in love with his hands, but hasn't gotten away from his strengths. And his relentless takedown approach has been evident in every single fight. 2 of 4 against Hassan Sal, 6 of 9 against Kelleher, 7 of 10 against Perello, Ray Borg, 7-11, 6 of 16 against Rob Font. So if he's losing a fight standing, he's going to do everything he can to tailor it around his strengths and try to get back to the takedowns because his top control is great. And he can usually out muscle people. Jack Shore is a technician in a way, and he's able to blend things as evidence in the Timur Valiev fight. Ludovic Shalinian in the close split decision win over Hunter Azure, who has, a pretty good wrestling background as well. Now, Shore's used to being the better wrestler or grappler in certain situations, and I'm just really intrigued to see how this unfolds. He went 3 of 7 in the takedown department against Timur Valiev, 2 of 8 against Ludovic Shalinian, and 6 of 13. The 6 of 13 is pretty big for going up against a dangerous wrestler in Hunter Azure. So I would agree with you that standing up, I think Jack Shore might have more success, a little bit more variety, whereas Ricky Simone, big shots on the feet. One of the best underdogs on the slate, just given how intense and the pace of the fight. But again, I can actually see a sneaky stack of this fight working out too, Jason. Both of these guys have high volume. And I'm just intrigued to see what happens. I think I'm favoring Shore in the matchup slightly, but Ricky Simone is one of the best values at 7,800.
And Mahler 138 was just kind of thrown out there about a potential stack of, doesn't know if he has the thought process to actually pull the trigger on that one. But I think the question with that stack, I think really becomes down to is this a situation where on both sides of the equation that these guys could score a takedown, get those 5 points, but their opponent just hops right back up to their feet?
Yeah, but that's good though. I mean, like that's what we want, right? Like we want like points galore. And the salary comparison for Jack Shore against Ricky Simone, 8,400 for Shore, Simone at 7,800. You could even have Jack Shore in a losing effort score a lot more than people who actually win a fight. Now, if you were to stack the Shane Burgos and Charles Jourdain, 9,000 and 7,200, you would have to believe that Burgos has to extremely score well at 9,000 compared to the other high-priced options. So I just think the salaries of Shore and Simone make the stack a little bit more viable than the Jourdain Burgos.
Next up, we got a matchup between two fighters who had two different opponents on this fight card, but their opponents both pulled out of the event. So the UFC matched them together. That'd be Bill Algeo and Herbert Burns. Bill Algeo, 8,700, 7,500 for Herbert Burns. Bill Algeo has always been kind of one of my favorite guys just to watch fight. You talk about, you hear this analogy in the MMA betting sphere, in the DFS sphere. He's going to fight for your money. And like, that's the way I would describe Bill Algeo.
Yeah, and he definitely is. Bill Algeo is going to be one of my most exposed fighters on the slate. Now, last week, I had Kyle Bahayo as one of my most exposed fighters on the slate, and he looked damn good. I also had Ricky Tercios, and that did not look good at all because I don't know what the hell that was, what kind of performance that was. But this week, man, I really like Bill Algeo at 8,700, and I think he's a very difficult matchup for Herbert Burns, because he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He has the more superior striking, I would say, and the more diverse attacks. Herbert Burns' striking has been improving, obviously working a lot at Sanford MMA over the years. His jiu-jitsu is his bread and butter. It really is. Now, the issue is the inactivity and the layoff of Herbert Burns. And I kind of, dove into it because we haven't seen him since August of 2020. So nearly 2 years ago. And coming off a big surgery of ACL surgery. So I don't really like hearing that. And, not being acclimated to the cage is a big red flag for me, especially when you're going up against a very competitive opponent. I'm going to be favoring Bill Algeo here. Now, with that being said, I have to tell you my big worry, and it's Algeo giving up his back. He gives up his back so much in his fights that Herbert Burns' jiu-jitsu, he's so good at taking the back or getting you in a terrible position. Obviously, Joe Anderson Brito had Algeo in a bad spot. He was able to survive. Ricardo Ramos had him in terrible spots, and he was able to survive. Even Spike Carlisle at times. All three talented jiu-jitsu fighters. I would have to imagine that Bill Algeo has enough skill to avoid some of those spots, but I don't like how it's just a tendency of his. Like, it's a bad trait that he gives up his back so much against a dangerous fighter. If he didn't have that, I would be almost locking in Bill Algeo this week. I love him. But Herbert Burns, man, in the UFC has been quite the finisher when he wins. So I can't wait to see the fight unfold, but it's Algeo for me.
Next up, we have got a matchup between Jacoby and Jung. Jacoby, 8,300, 7,900 for Jung. Spoke to Dustin Jacoby about 3 weeks ago at this point. And one of the things I asked him about was, when you look at what Jung has done in the UFC, the outlier fight that really sticks out to you is the matchup against William Knight, where he landed 7 takedowns. And I go, hey, when you're taking on a fighter where you primarily see that he is a striker, but then there's this one outlier where he did go to takedown route. I mean, how does it affect? And basically, the short story was he's not expecting to see Jung going for takedowns.
I think that's a mistake. I truthfully do, because what a fighter applies in some matchups doesn't mean they're going to apply the same strategy towards you. And you got to imagine not many people are going to be willing to, stand and trade with Dustin Jacoby. You're a fantastic kickboxer. Why the heck is anybody going to be willing to do that for all 15 minutes? Now, I do think Dao Un Jung has the skills to do so on the feet. He KO'd Mike Rodriguez in pretty spectacular fashion. He attempted one takedown against Hadis Ibrahimov in his debut, 3 takedowns against Sam Alvey, and went 8 of 9 against William Knight, as you just mentioned. I think that there's more ways for Jung to win this fight than Dustin Jacoby, and Dustin Jacoby needs to be, he needs to implement the correct game plan, and that's, dance around the octagon, which he needs to avoid getting pressed against the cage, because I think Daun Jung has the combinations to crash forward and, test that takedown defense or test the inside striking. I'm going to be favoring the underdog here in Daun Jung, 7,900. I truthfully am, just because I feel like, in Jacoby's fights we've seen, he's not easy to take down, but obviously he can be taken down. And if he is, that's not in his realm of expertise. I think Jung is one of the most interesting underdogs on the slate. I don't hate Jacoby, but throughout Jung's UFC career, his durability has checked out. So a decision win from Jacoby versus a decision win from Jung, I would like to think that Jung would score more, just given the takedown nature.
And Marcos brings up a great point about how this betting line has flipped over the past couple of days, where Justin Jacoby, what had been the betting favorite in this one, but over the past couple of days is now flipped. So it tells you how the betting public is looking at this fight. The betting public is looking at Jung. And I mean, look, one thing about Jacoby, I mean, the guy's been unbeaten for the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. So, he's done well there. And maybe tell you what Prize Picks thinks of this fight. The fight time for Jacoby on this one is 14 and 3/4. So it kind of tells you how they expect to see what's go. And I thought one of the more interesting things about what Jacoby did say to me is will be in a 30-footer cage. It won't be in a 25-footer. And I was like, well, I gotta imagine you love that 30-footer. He's like, no, he was actually, I prefer the 25-footer, which was kind of weird to me when you think of Jacoby with that kickboxing base, as opposed you would think he'd like that bigger cage. So this is a good matchup there at 205 pounds. 2 more fights to break down. And this next fight, Pete, could be a fight that we may have to be looking at deeper over the next couple of days, just because neither fighter is getting ownership here. That's Dwight Grant, Dustin Stolfus. Grant's 8,900, Stolfus 7,300.
Yeah, this fight's ugly as heck, because Dwight Grant coming off a knockout defeat to Sergey Kondoshko, and that was back in April. And here we are 3 months later, and he's back in the cage. Now, good for him. He's not facing a talented striker in Dustin Stolfus, but he's facing a much more well-rounded guy and a natural middleweight, whereas Dwight Grant was a former welterweight. So at some point, size does come into play. And Dwight Grant early in his career started off at middleweight a little bit, but I think that Dustin, just being a little bit more acclimated to the weight class, has been winless inside the octagon. I think that the strength could be a difference maker here, and his durability has checked out. So that's my one way I could see Dwight Grant winning most fights is by landing a big shot, despite having lackluster volume. And I don't really hate Dustin Stoltzfus's durability. I don't enjoy his skill set, but I mean, he attempted 7 takedowns against Kyle Dawkins, even 3 takedowns against Rodolfo Vieira, and 4 takedowns against Gerald Mearshart, where he landed 4 of 4. Can Dwight Grant defend the takedowns from the bigger man consistently? And I'm going to lean towards the underdog and say that Dustin Stoltzfus, despite not being the most attractive underdog on the slate or one of the best plays on the slate, I'm going to lean in his direction and think that he can get it done. Now, I think this is going to go 15 minutes. I hope I'm not wrong, but it's going to be a lean towards the underdog Stoltzfus at 7,300.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, look, if you're looking to get away from that ownership of some of those 9,000 fighters, taking a stab on Dwight Grant, I don't mind. You're taking stabs on Dolphus,
right.
And for me, it's an ownership play in terms of, more of looking at it, of playing multi-entries. Now, of course, this is the Stokastic.com MMA strategy shows. We're breaking down UFC Long Island, of course, coming up here on Saturday. Myself and Pete will be back here on Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. But do want to let you know about a promo we got going on right now over at Stokastic.com, as Underdog has launched their Puppy 2 Best Ball contest for the 2022 NFL season. and you want to reserve your spot before it quickly fills up. With this, we are offering a $1 weekly access to our best ball kit through Sunday, July the 15th. That's $8.99 off our original price. This package includes best ball and season-long fantasy football rankings, underdog daily draft rankings, and our best ball stacking guide, cheat sheets, premium articles, and so much more. To activate this offer, use the promo code PUPPY at checkout or simply click the link in the video description below. That's promo code PUPPY for $1 weekly best ball draft kit access. You got to take advantage of that as football season is here. And Pete, you know how I know football season's here?
Why?
I have my first production meeting tomorrow.
Oh, dang.
So I know football season's right here. You know, when you get that call like, hey, man, can we get together on Friday? All right, we get together on Friday. That's what I know. Yeah, our first preseason game, 1 month away, Pete.
Jeez, it's crazy because I don't it's tough. I like football season, but I also hate it at the same time because it means that summer's coming to an end. So, I love the sport. I wish I lived in a warmer climate, but, summer's a little too short up here.
I'm telling you, when I walk outside, summer's not ending anytime soon.
Yeah. I know it's true. Maybe it doesn't this year.
As I look at the Apple Watch, it says it's currently 90 degrees here in Tampa.
Yeah. It's been hot as heck up here as well. So,
what do you consider hot?
Well, it's
just
humid
got
as
done
heck
raining. Pete, it just got done raining. I'm not kidding. It is 98 outside. Do not come at me with it's hot. It was 107 at 7 p.m. yesterday, Pete. Tell me why that makes sense.
The hottest place I've ever been in my life was Texas. And, I've trained out in New Mexico. I was cornering one of my buddies in Texas at an outdoor arena. And it was the worst idea ever because the mat was burning fighters. Oh, it was the worst idea ever, dude. And I was like, you idiots. You pick an outdoor arena in Texas. So
I remember hearing stories. Remember when Bellator was doing that summer series at NASCAR events?
Yep.
And look, it was a Bellator brand, but it was literally just local MMA. Mm-hmm. And I heard stories of the mat being so hot that literally guys were burning the bottoms of their feet. Yeah.
Bottoms of your feet. Or if you get taken down, that's terrible. It's terrible if you don't have a good wrestling.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. Get me out.
I'm sure there's some Tapology results on there. Tap out via mat burn. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. Marcos goes, Florida only has one season. No, Marcos, literally in Florida, we could have about 3 or 4 seasons in one day.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, 3 o'clock every day it rains, right? So
5 o'clock. Get it right.
Okay,
5 o'clock.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I walked outside the house yesterday. I was like a newfound appreciation every time I walk out of my house in the summer and go, I'm not built to work outside. For people who work who mow yards for a living, work on roofs, mad props to you guys because I'm not built for that, Pete. I'm not built for that.
Yeah. Marcos is in West Palm. Awesome. I'll tell you what, you guys are all soft though, because if you never spent winters in New England, oh boy.
Why would
it was brutal. And you have a new appreciation to everybody who works outside in the freezing cold. It's ridiculous. Would you rather be freezing cold or hot? I would rather be hot.
Oh, hot.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
Much rather be hot.
Same. Yep. Look, okay. At least we agree on that.
Look, I'm not trying to live in a place where I got to shovel snow to just move my car.
Yeah. Jason's going to cry and tap out over shoveling snow. And yeah,
I'll be doing ride sharing everywhere.
Us New Englanders are different, bro. So,
yeah, I remember that when you're shoveling snow. I'm just going to see a picture. Nice sun here in Tampa, bro.
Always jealous. Always jealous.
Let's get on to the last matchup of the card as the only fight featuring a fighter making their UFC debut. Got Emily Ducote taking on Jessica Penne. Of course, Penne, the longtime veteran of the UFC. She is 8,200 for Emily Ducote. Of course, Ducote, Bellator alum, most recently fighting in Invicta, where she had won the title there. Pete, what's your thoughts here?
I am interested in this matchup, and naturally every week that 8,200, 8,000 fight sneaks into the optimal lineup more often than not because it's a very, very close fight, and the salary just makes it so easy for lineups. And usually I don't like fighters debuting against UFC veterans, and Jessica Penne having a 3-3 record in the UFC. You know, she's been around a lot longer than Emily Ducote. So the experience is something you can't really measure. I'm always a little bit worried about fighters having octagon jitters or underperforming under the lights, but it's not like Emily Ducote hasn't performed in high organizations. She's fought in Bellator in the past and also some high regional promotions. So I think the striking difference here is pretty significant. Ducote's the much more powerful striker, and it's pretty rare for women's MMA to have like unbelievable powerful striking. And that's why like Amanda Lemos looks completely different than a lot of her opponents, Jessica Andrade, like, you know, and I think that Emily Ducote has some sneaky pop. One of the best knockouts on the regional scene, UFC, against Taylor, where she hit her with a beautiful right hand, followed up with a nice left head kick. I'm picking Emily Ducote here, and she's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And that's the one worry I have about anybody going up against Jessica Penne is what happens if it hits the mat and she starts to threaten you with submissions? How do you deal with that? How do you handle that? Ducote, most, recently promoted to black belt. I think she has enough skills to avoid dangerous situations. But as we say it, man, armbar from guard, always viable. And Jessica Penne has shown that as evidence in the Karolina Kowalkiewicz fight.
Yeah, that's the one thing that does concern me about getting Ducote is what happens if Jessica Penne can just, control her with the grappling. So that's something to think about here. Of course, appreciate everyone tuning in here for the strategy show. Of course, appreciate if you hit that thumbs up. Of course, you're not subscribed to Stochastic, do that. Hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live here on the channel. Of course, come up here later on today. 5 o'clock each time, we got MLB Deeper Dive. Then 1 hour after that will be MLB Live Before Lock. Appreciate all the super chats. We'll get in those two in a moment. Now, last week, I forgot to do the straight up picks, which clearly is a popular segment in this show because I had multiple people say, hey, where are the straight up picks? Well, here they are. Here's the straight up DFS picks. Main event, give me the favorite and Brian Ortega.
I'm going to go Yair.
I will go Amanda Lemos over Michelle Waterson.
Lemos.
This one I keep going back and forth on. I'm going to go Salikov.
I'm going Salikov.
Give me Sumoderji over Matt Schnell.
Sumoderji.
I will go Shane Burgos over Charles Jourdain.
Shane Burgos.
I really want. Let me just say this: my thought could change after weigh-ins, but right now I will say Miesha Tate over Lauren Murphy.
Yeah, Miesha Tate.
I will take Puna Soriano.
Puna.
Give me the underdog in Ricky Simone.
Oh man, Ricky's my guy. I'm gonna say Jack Shore though.
I'll go Bill Algeo.
Bill Algeo.
I will go the now underdog Justin Jacoby.
Dalton Jung.
Stolfus and Grant.
I'm gonna go Stolfus, but literally no faith in this fight.
I want to say Stolfus, but I'll side with Grant. And then I'll go Emily Ducote in the first fight of the night.
Ducote.
Let's get some super chats in here before we get out of here on this edition of the show. Samuel, pop into his usual questions. And Pete, I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah, bro. What the heck's he doing?
Sam, you drinking already, bro? Like, I mean, I know I'm going to be drinking later on today, but I mean, bro, it's not even 2 o'clock Eastern time. Over and a half is 2.5.
Bro, come on, Sam.
Bro, Sam, if you're a bookie, you're going out of business this weekend.
Sam, if this 2.5 hits and there's only 2 finishes on this card, we got to send him something.
Traveler.
We got to send him something.
No, he needs to send us something from the future because he's a time traveler. I think Sam's been up watching the U.S. Open since 2 a.m. and started drinking or something because that line is egregious.
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah, clearly over 2.5. I would say I would put more of that number. I think should probably be around 6.5. I think is more appropriate.
I think 5.5 is fair too.
Yeah. Let's go. His usual question here. Top 2 cash plays.
I'm gonna go by fights, and it's definitely the main event. The salaries are broken. 8,500 and 7,700. That's a cash play. Cannot avoid it. Even stacking it would make sense in cash. So yeah, I mean that's the 1 and 2 for me, honestly. So
would you throw Bill Algeo in there?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Bill this week, so I hope I'm not wrong on that. I would still say, yeah, I'd say Bill Algeo.
Top 2 GPPs. I think from in terms of a fight, I think I would throw Sumoderji and Schnell in that.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, there's so many like possible high scoring underdogs this week, and a lot of weeks there's not. I think that you're right onto something with the Matt Schnell Sumoderji fight. I think the Burgos and Jourdain one is probably a priority for me, though.
Underdogs. I mean, if I was going to just like start my lineup with one underdog and the underdog is not named Yair Rodriguez, it might be Li Jialing.
Really?
Just because of the GPP upside.
I think I'm going to go Ricky Simone / Da-Un Jung. Just because I feel like they're in close matchups and they both have a wrestling upside. If they obviously go to it, it's not easy matchups for them, but them pulling off an upset over their opponent wouldn't really surprise me.
Top leverage place. I'm looking at that Grant and Stolfus fight just because it's got low ownership on both sides.
Michelle Waterson, probably the biggest leverage play.
Yeah. In terms of best combinations on prize picks, I really like the under on fight times I mentioned a little bit earlier, which is the under on Puna Soriano and under on Sumoderji. So if you got any questions, let us know. Sam, within our super chat, he goes, thoughts on the lineup I'm working on: Burgos, Jung, Dolce, Ortega, Shore, and Sumoderji. Also have the same, but with Ricky Simone instead of Jack Shore.
Yeah, pretty sure I have the same lineup. I don't hate it. And this is GPP territory all day long. If you're doing a single entry, this might be one of the most difficult weeks we've had in a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I would tell you, Sam, about that lineup that I just really love is that even when you look at the fighters that are the quote unquote underdogs in those matchups, they've got a high ceiling. It's not like you're finding yourself in a situation where you're taking, an underdog and you're just hoping that they can kind of, maybe work their way with takedowns, whatnot. I mean, I like all those that you mentioned over there. Sam saying, it says Florida feels like the bathroom at the local pool, just hot and wet.
I love it. And we got Marcos saying that he really likes Lee this weekend. And from an underdog standpoint, man, like he just lost to Khamzat Chimaev. So this is a much easier matchup than Khamzat Chimaev. Still a difficult matchup, but much easier.
Yeah, it's but we'll be back here on Saturday for a live before lock. 10 a.m. Eastern time is when we will be here. Of course, 1 hour before UFC Long Island prelims at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Main card at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, if you ever have any questions for us, hit us up in the Discord chat. If you want to leave a comment below in the YouTube section, you can do that as well. As always, appreciate everyone checking out us here at the MMA Strategy Show. And that is going to do it for this episode. And we will talk to you on Saturday for live before lock. Have a good afternoon, everybody.